Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of BCS Community Connections. And today on the podcast, I have none other than Mrs. Shayla Clifton. And Mrs. Shayla Clifton is the owner of the new SoCo Sno cone stand here. That's hard to say, like in a row.
It's a tongue twister.
Yeah, SoCo Sno. It's the new snow cone stand in South College Station. And we're going to spend a little bit of time today talking about her and her business model that she's opened up here recently, give you a little insight to what it is that she does. And so what I want to do and kind of start with, like I normally do in most of my podcasts, is start with your background, tell everybody kind of where you grew up and what you did, where you kind of graduated from and stuff, and then what brought you here to the Bryan College Station area.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on.
Sure.
I'm really excited to be here today and kind of talk through things. My background, I am not from College Station, obviously, from West Texas. Abilene, 45 minutes north of Abilene. Haskell, Texas, really small town, 3,500 people. Graduated in 2007 from Haskell High School. Went on to Abilene, big city. Worked there for a little bit and then decided that I needed more than just working experience. Yeah. So I went on to Sam Houston and got my degree in my bachelor's in business administration. And along with that, we moved here to College Station. My husband works in oil and gas. So kind of then 2013 was the market, Franklin, all that area. So that's why we're here. We've been here almost 10 years. I've just been, we moved away for a little bit to New York City, and then decided that New York City was definitely different than Texas.
Well, if you grow up in Texas, you move anywhere outside Texas, everything is different. That's how that works. So. Yeah.
So we decided after selling literally everything that it was time to come back home to College Station. So we've been here back in College Station for a couple of years, and this is home now.
So Texas born though, grew up here. Your husband is Kaysen.
Yeah.
How'd you and Kaysen meet?
So Kaysen and I actually met waiting tables at Abuelo's, which, rest in peace, Abuelo's here. Abuelo's back in Abilene. So he had worked there for a long time before I did. And then I started working there, and we just kind of hit it off, I guess, as friends. And we stayed friends through several years and moves and stuff, and then we decided to reconnect in history.
Yeah, we'll give Kaysen a shout out here on the podcast, even though he's not with us today. But almost like he's passed on or something.
Oh,
but,
I know.
No, and it really his he's in oil and gas, but his background really is music and stuff. So it's always interesting to kind of talk to him as well. So, in coming to Sam Houston, because that's really kind of what brought you into the area, was pursuing a college education, going to Sam Houston State here. So what's really kind of funny is we have like this bubble. It's almost like a circle around College Station of where you kind of classify College Stationites, Bryanites, all that other kind of stuff. And like Sam Houston's it's a pretty mobile transport for most people. A lot of folks that go there don't typically want to take up residence in Huntsville, so they come here and they make the commute. And of course it's a shoot down the backside and all of that stuff. So you end up graduating from Sam Houston with your degree. And then where does that take you?
So I was at St. Joseph's working in the marketing department, actually interning there, and I convinced whoever to make it a full-time job. So I was there for several years before we moved to New York City. In New York, I was doing marketing at Maybelline, L'Oreal parent company. Really enjoyed that. Devil Wears Prada in real life.
Yeah.
But, marketing in New York is definitely different than marketing here. So it was definitely a learning curve, but I love a challenge. I'll do anything, at least one time just to say that I've done it to get the experience. So, St. Joseph's was really good to me. I always attribute my knowledge and success to St. Joseph's. If it wasn't for that internship, I probably wouldn't be where I am today for that. So,
well, and the discussions in today's world, unfortunately, a lot of folks come out of college and they're like, okay, I got my degree, so where's my $100,000 a year kind of deal? And watching people who come out with those degrees go through the trenches, like really, like you were saying, like it started as an internship, like
unpaid internship.
Yeah, like I just got to get my foot in the door. Let me get my foot in the door and show what I can do, and then hopefully that will gear and kind of create its own legs and run from there, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really kind of doing the due diligence of all of that, and then letting that career take its spot from there. So New York for you guys, that was more of, it's probably a culture shock to an extent. I think you're coming out of Texas and you just go there. Obviously, the living and cost of living is going to be way different. And, culturally, there's a lot more stuff there than what you experience here. You're obviously getting your experience in marketing at that point being really at probably what would be the hub of probably marketing in the United States. And with all of the different marketing firms that are there, and you're getting that opportunity to be able to do that. So, and we'll come back and we'll touch on that because I think that's kind of a curious avenue that I'd like to explore into your business that you've started here. So I want to back up a little bit because snow cones for you isn't just like, you're not just like sitting around one day and just go, you know what, man, let's start a snow cone stand. Like snow cones for you was something like long before probably you even got into college and marketing and all of that other kind of stuff. So what I like you tell everybody is kind of tell everybody how that kind of became, I guess, a passion to an extent. Like why is that kind of the thing that hung on, and what led you into the snow cone world there?
Yeah, it's like the most random thing, I, growing up, obviously, like I said, in a small town, there was a small town mom and pop snow cone stand that one of my friends' parents opened up, and it was right by the pool in the summer. So that was kind of like, after we would go to the pool, we would get a snow cone, or before. Well, then I randomly ended up working there for like, I don't even think it was for a long time. I think it was for a month, but I loved it. Like there was just something that I loved, like thinking back, I can remember that so vividly, like the smell of the stand, like inside, it smells like sweet, but then I don't know. It's a memory that I don't think that I'll ever get out of my head. And then I moved to Abilene, obviously, after I graduated, like I said, and still Abilene is a bigger city, but there's still like those mom and pop stands that someone's opening. And my friends and I, we would just go and have a snow cone. Well, after working at Abuelo's, we would go and get some snow cones. My friend Rachel and I, who we've been friends for almost 10 years, that was kind of like, we call it like our first friendship date, because we had been working together, but obviously working together in a working environment is different when you go outside.
Sure.
So we were kind of like nervous. I mean, like we didn't really know each other. We came from different places. She's from Houston. I'm from there. So we always say that we bonded over our snow cones. Yeah. So, there's just been like all these different things in my life that have involved snow cones. Mm-hmm. And I always have like a really good memory of snow cones. So kind of talking why snow cones, obviously 2020 happened.
Yeah. Nobody's getting snow cones in 2020, right? Like they have to make their own or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there thinking like, gosh, I really want like a snow cone, but I don't really know anywhere like here in town that I really enjoy for that matter. And so I was like, we should open a snow cone stand. Kason and I are just sitting around, and I was like, we should open a snow cone stand. Let's do it. And he looked at me kind of crazy, and I was like, no, like there's nothing like here, like mom and pops, like we got back home. And so we kind of started, I really started like researching trailers or the portable buildings and that kind of stuff. So just to see like pricing, well, I had to pitch it, to Kaysen to see if he would be in on it, obviously. And the more that we talked about it, the more that we really knew that this was probably something that could really take off.
Sure.
So, I don't know. It's been a lot of fun to kind of get it all together. There definitely has been a lot more than I expected.
Yeah.
But
we'll talk about all that. I think what's interesting about snow cones, I think when you say that and people get an opportunity to listen to it, and it really is kind of what you described. If you think about the idea of people going and getting snow cones is not like, let's go get a burger, right? I mean, like, I'm hungry, I go get a burger. But snow cones really is the idea of, it's almost like, let's do a social, almost like a little social event, right? Whether that's within your family, you got kids or whatever, we got 10-year-old, so we go as a family and get a little snow cone or whatever. Or like you said, even friends that come to town. I mean, listen, I don't know the last time that I've ever asked anybody if they want to go get a snow cone and they say no, right? I mean, it is one of those deals, like you said, it can create all these different levels to different people, right? It can be a bonding experience. It can be a social event. It can be a date night. It can be all of those things and more, but it's tied to the idea of being almost like you said, almost like an event, like a something that you're planning and you're going to decide. But it can also be that like pull off on the side of the road here and like, hey, let's try it out, So what's really interesting about snow cones as well, too, is the separation it creates in customers, right? Like, you've got these customers that are out there, like, we're the customer is like, we want soft, flaky ice. I don't want any of that hard, chunky stuff. You can save all of that for your grandma or whatever. I don't want any of that. I want soft, flaky ice. Almost to the point of where when it's got the syrup on there and stuff, it's almost, by the time I put it in my mouth, it's the texture of like ice cream. Yeah. Just about, right? And to me, I'm like, who wouldn't want that? Like, but then there's those customers that are out there that are like, I really like that hard kind of squared ice and everything else. I'm like, you're talking about like what Sonic like puts in their drinks and stuff? Like, so it is also one of those deals where you have a customer base that starts and is built at the ice first.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like,
I mean, even speaking to our experience, like, Kaysen and I grew up on, we call it crunchy snow cones.
Yeah.
And there is definitely a very hard line between the customer that, like you, loves like the soft, snow. Yeah. And then us who likes hard rock ice. But I mean, I can enjoy both, obviously. But some people are like, what kind of ice do you have?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, for us, it's a make or break. Like if you listen, I'm not going to bash anybody, right? But let's just say, like, if I went to a place in College Station that had snow cones as a part of their deal and the ice is hard, I'm not in.
Yeah.
I'm not in, man. I mean, I understand I can let it sit there and it's going to get soft and it's going to get liquidy after a while, but
but then it's just watery.
Yeah, no, man. I'm not down with that. I need soft snow. I'm that guy. And my family's the same way. And Deanna's probably even worse in it than I am. Like, when she was pregnant, snow cones were like the it item for us. That was like, people like, whatever, they crave pickles and all that. Hers was snow cones, right? Oh my
gosh.
And it had to be a certain type of ice or it was out. And so people were kind of that same deal. So you decide that, you and Kaysen decide, okay, we're going to start up SoCo Sno. Where'd the name come from? Let's start with the name first.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, so most people understand SoCo if they're in College Station, but let's talk through the whole piece, like where it all come from.
So obviously, like I said, moved to New York. Before we had actually moved to New York, we had visited New York multiple times, like 8 times every 6 months. We love New York. And so Soho, south of Houston, not Houston, Houston. So there's a neighborhood, Soho. Well, then we moved here, and I'm kind of like going through the process of finding a name, which is so hard. Like there's, my mind is going 1,000 different directions. Sure. I obviously want it to be relatable to snow cones and have some sort of like semblance for that.
Right.
So we live in South College Station. I'm kind of like thinking like, how can we, that's where we want our location to be, is South College Station, but also I don't want it to corner us to like one section, like snow cones of College Station, or something like that. Yeah. So just trying to like think, I literally had like a notes on my app, like of different names, and like checked through, or like question mark, I don't know. It was definitely hard. So really like trying to nail it down, and I'm thinking like, okay, well, there's an apartment complex called SoCo, but I don't want to like knock them off. Like what am I going to do? So I thought, okay, South College Station, SoCo Sno. And then it just kind of like, I sat with it for a few days, and it kind of like rolled off the tongue. And I called some family members, some friends, and kind of like talked with them about it. And they were like, no, like that's perfect, SoCo Sno. Yeah. And you lived in New York, Soho, they were relating it back before I even said anything. So
the intent maybe wasn't necessarily to pay that homage, but it indirectly paid that homage to the New York area as well too.
Yeah. So I think, after having those conversations, it was like, there's no doubt, like it's going to be SoCo Sno.
Yeah. Well, and so South College Station, I mean, we both live in the same area. There's not a lot of options, especially when we talk about small business and small business ownership. When it comes to snow cones, there's none that I know of in South College Station. So you guys pick something that it's not necessarily overloaded. You're not going into like a fast food restaurant and that kind of stuff. You're not doing burgers or whatever, or pizza, or what we're infamously known for, barbecue. So I mean, all of that stuff, you kind of shy away, and you get into this vein of something that's a passion for you that really isn't fully blown market, right? Like you've got maybe one competitor that's over there that's a national brand, and so it's this opportunity to be able to start up in that area, which South College Station for most people, South College Station has always kind of been like Tower Point, right? Like at Tower Point, that's kind of where everybody calls it. And the center of College Station really has been like Texas Avenue, and has kind of centered around that area for a while. But with all the growth that's happening in South College Station as it continues to move out, I mean, there's supposed to be a 1,500 house development going in at the racetrack. They're supposed to be developing across from Castlegate. Midtown is working its way into development now. And what's going to happen is that continues to push south over the next 5, 10, 15 years. Probably where you guys are at least right now, is going to probably be center, or will be center at some point. And so South College Station and SoCo and everything else, that'll be the mainstay name for your business. But tentatively right now, with starting up the business and everything else, and we're recording this here in May. I mean, this is, by the time people are listening to this, we're going in, I think the 4th of July weekend is when we're releasing this one. So you've had this opportunity really right now where you've been open for about a month in your location that you're at. Your location currently, you're off of Barron Road and Highway 6. And so you're literally right there at the gas station with the La Familia, and you're right there at the end of the parking lot, right? Yeah. And so got to give a little bit of props here to your building. So your building, basically, Kaysen put a lot of effort into that. And I think the thing that's most impressive with seeing the unit kind of go from ground up, because we were fortunate, we know you guys, and we were fortunate to be able to kind of see the effort that you guys put into this. And it wasn't just your normal, like, okay, you're mobile, but it wasn't just like, hey, let's just throw something up real quick and go through this. You guys built this thing ground up, literally like structured it to a trailer, built it to this trailer. What amazes me is the amount of detail that Kaysen like puts into this thing of like, as soon as he builds something out, then he's like looking at it going, we really need this.
Yeah.
Or we should put this. And and that's kind of his OCD part of like kicking in to making sure that everything is perfect, right? And so even on the build along, like as he's going along, it's kind of like, I remember talking to you guys and you're like, we should do this, or we should put this in here. And so when the unit was first done and I stepped into it, I was blown away at just what the inside of it looks like, because you're thinking to yourself on a trailer unit, you're going, okay, well, yeah, it's going to have, 4 walls, window over here, that kind of stuff. And, I kind of have an idea of what goes into a snow cone stand to begin with. But I guess in my head, I've got this kind of like thought process that it's going to be like a 4-wheeled unit that kind of runs around and is mobile and can be towed. And then you walk into this thing and it is literally like you're walking into a concrete structure on the pad building, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it literally is. I mean, and again, the thought process of what has gone into there. So not only are you running, you have generator run-ons, you've got, your fresh water, your gray water, you've got your on-site water heater literally right up underneath there. And then even in the process of after you guys got in place and opened up, Kaysen's like, we should be doing this and we should do that. And the next thing I know, I walk in there this last weekend, I think, and it was like, he's showing me the rack that you guys have put up. And he's like, this, and everything. I think what's really interesting about you guys are definitely like, go big or go home. Right? Like that's the one thing we know about you guys is like, it's, we're not going to cut any corners on anything. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. Let's build it out correctly, but let's also make it something that aesthetically is pleasing from outside and from inside. Right. And so, but now that you're at your location and you're physically there, and again, it was kind of like, I'm sitting there looking at it and I'm going, how are you getting to the window? And the next thing I know, here comes Kaysen rolling up with a truck, and he's got the wood stairs that he's built, and they're all 2x4s, like, tornado comes through there. The trailer may be gone, but the staircase is still going to be there.
They're staying.
It's like solid heavy duty, right? And so in starting all of that up and putting that in there, and you're kind of like trying to position things in certain locations. You're trying to make decisions of what needs to go where in there, what's going to make this easier for us. Yeah. That literally changes on the fly. Like once you get open and running, you're like, we really need this, which is then where the rack comes into place. Yeah. Like this isn't going to work of just having all these up here. And it's kind of, again, knowing the OCD and all that other stuff. I'm sure, is that you or is that Kaysen then that's kind of, or are you just kind of feeding back the problem and Kaysen is over there with his Rain Man, solution of like, I really need to do this, This is what we need to do.
I mean, it honestly, like, I think it is a very like collaborative effort. Kind of speaking back to the ground up, when we were thinking about what structure we were going to use, that was very, I mean, at first I just wanted to go get this portable building and just drag it somewhere and set it.
Yeah.
But then we started thinking about how we wanted ours to be, like my snow cone. How do I want my snow cone place to be?
Right.
It really needed to be something that I was proud of. And I know that's probably so cliche to say, but that's when it was like, okay, we can't get a portable building without it being thousands and thousands of dollars like we want it, without it getting custom made. So we'll just build it ourselves. Well, Kaysen will build it.
Yeah.
So
he will build it, they will come.
Yeah. So then we really started thinking, okay, well, how do we want it to be mobile? Because so many times, like the mobile trailers that you see are fabricated for just this kind of universal food truck or food stand. So we got a trailer, and then Kaysen is, starting to build this thing. And honestly, I'm like so impressed because I've always known that he's handy. We've been together almost 10 years. So I'm like, yeah, he can do this. Mm-hmm. But when it really comes down to it, I'm like, how does he even know what he's doing? He's like buying all these specific tools, and I don't even know. Like, I can't even tell you the amount of tools that went into building this because it's tools that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking like, oh, it would be really nice if we had this specific tool. And then he's like whipping it out. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, did DeWalt just like make this for you? So he's like building this house. You know, I told him like, this is my vision. This is what I want. We currently live in like a white house, and, you know, I wanted to stay with that like farmhousey look. I didn't really want like the super bright, like I'm a snow cone stand, you know. I wanted it to be aesthetic, like you said, aesthetically pleasing.
Right.
So he's building this like farmhouse, you know, on this trailer, and then it's like really starting to, you know, take flight. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, we're really far into this. Like we're really dedicated. So
if you didn't know what it was, like if you saw it during fabrication at the point that the paint's going on it and everything, and you didn't know what it was, you'd think it was a tiny house.
Yeah, it looks like a tiny house.
Yeah.
And, you know, so many times people were like, actually one of my friends is like, you need to go into the tiny house business, Kason. Like you need to start building these, because obviously that's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just didn't want, it really took a lot of thought, and I'm not lying when I say that there were nights where I would wake up in the middle of the night, like ninja out of bed, and be like, I need to go write this down because
I'm going to lose this.
I'm going to lose it, you know, and like, I want this. This is a good thought. Or like, I would dream about snow cones, you know, going back to like my serving days. You know, I don't know if did you ever wait tables?
No, but I worked Taco Bell.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure you had these thoughts too. It's like you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to get that customer sour cream, you know, and they just like never asked about it.
No, that never crossed my mind. Well, the worst thing that ever happened at a Taco Bell for me was I threw the manager's keys at them and they dropped it down the drain that was 10 foot deep.
No.
That was probably the worst thing. Now, I might have gone to sleep going, because I think my manager's parting words to me that night were, we may have to pay somebody to rip the floor up to get to this, and who's going to pay for that? And so I think I went home that night like, I'm going to lose my job, you know, or I'm going to have to pay $10,000 to rip this up. That was about as invested as I got in that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you know, I don't know how many times Kason and I've talked about it the next morning, and we're like, yeah, we totally had like a server nightmare dream, or a server nightmare where we forgot to give this customer sour cream or whatever it was. So I would wake up and think like, oh my gosh, we have to do this for the snow cones, or this is exactly what I'm wanting, or I need to research this, or like I would wake up in the middle of the night and start researching stuff because I didn't want to lose my thought. So everything that we did, it was about quality and about the aesthetic, because I mean, whenever I go to buy something, I want the place that I'm purchasing from to be clean. I want it to look like you want to buy something from it.
Yeah.
So that was really like our thought process. Going back to the whole OCD thing, it really is both of us. I always say like, it's Kason's skills of know-how, but it's my vision. And also, you know, I have to give him credit where credit's due. Like, he definitely has a vision. So there were definitely times where we were butting heads because he had a vision and I had a vision. And I was like, well, I'm going to be running it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're like, ultimately, I answer to this.
Yeah.
You know, so, well, here's what I think that's interesting. So the first noticeable thing when we went and had our first snow cone with you guys is what I expected, because I hadn't talked to you guys about what y'all were serving in or doing any of that kind of stuff. But what I expected was a little styrofoam cup to come out with a white plastic spoon, and when it's all done, you throw it all away, and, you know, just like any other snow cone experience I'd ever had. It'd always been in that kind of deal, right? And then we go up there, and you've got, you know, the small, medium, larges on the outside, and you see, it didn't register to us when we were looking on your menu, like the cups, right? Like at the bottom of it, you see the silhouettes of the cups or whatever, and it didn't register to me. And then, so then it comes out and you've got a high quality cup, you know, that it's in. And then on top of that, you have this spoon. Now, listen, if there's one thing, I love your snow cones. They're awesome. But the one thing that I think I rave about at least second is the spoons.
Yeah.
Like the spoons are one of these deals. Like I literally, the first time I ate there and I saw the spoons, and everybody's going to come to your snow cone like, what are these spoons all about?
yeah.
Literally when I saw them, I'm like, dude, I would keep these in a drawer at my house for like when kids come over to give it to them. I mean, they're bendable, but they're really not breakable, I guess. Like they don't, it's not wood, it's plastic, but I mean, it's not your normal.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, if you think about going to Sam's and getting a package of white plastic spoons, that's what you expect. And instead what you get is you get a higher quality product in high quality holding materials, meaning the cup and the spoon that comes along with it. And every single time we go there, we save the spoons.
Yeah.
Every time, and I'm like, this is so ridiculous that, we're a month in and I've already got my collection of Shayla spoons going on over here at the house. And then what's even funnier is like Abigail finishes hers and hands me the spoon. Like she knows I'm going to keep it, right? But I mean, again, it speaks to, because I know that's not cheap. You could have chose to go a much cheaper route in that process.
Yeah.
You could have quite honestly, you probably could have cut your expenses. I don't know what you pay on them, but I'll make the assumption that you could have gone half the cost.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, that is something that we thought about, but going back to the aesthetic, I want something that, and I'm going to say this, but we just have to, I think this is the world we live in.
Yeah.
It's Instagram worthy.
Yeah, it is.
So, I mean, if I want to capture that audience, then I'm going to have to be in the market and willing to pay a little bit extra. And I love that you think that I pay a lot of money, because that's what I want.
That's the first thing I look at is I'm like, you could have gone cheaper. I know you could have gone cheaper.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, in my head, even though I don't know your costs there, in my head, I'm thinking you could have gone at least half probably the price of what you're paying, because I'm thinking you've at least doubled that up based on what it is that you present to the customer.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not what you're paying out. And if it's not, great. You found a great little niche there. And your supplier that provides that to you is obviously giving you product that appears on that upper end side, right? So again, if you look at, you were talking earlier about, I wanted the building to look a certain way. I want this to be a certain way. I want my snow cones to, and again, for as ridiculous as what you think that sounds, of being Instagram worthy, think about how many times you've either been somewhere. God, this is going to sound so stupid. I just did this last night. So last night on my Facebook page, I took a picture of the Bluebell, right? The new Bluebell release, and put it up on there or whatever. It is that same deal. Like, you want to show two things. Like with me, it's like, I want to show, like, I kind of got to it first. Like, you know, and of course what's coming down my list is always, oh, tell me what your review is and what do you think and everything else. But it is the point of saying, like, if it's presentable, if you bring it out to me, even if I'm in a restaurant and you bring it out to me, it's been plated well. You know, you watch people all the time that like pull their phone out and take a picture of it and like, oh, look where we're at.
Back to
it's everything else, right?
Back to my friend Rachel, like, God bless her. There literally is not a meal that we can have if it's at, you know, some like nicer place or even just snow cones or whatever. Like, she's like pulling our food towards her to take a picture, you know, and that's what I want. Like, I wanted that, I guess, wow factor, you know? So it was a difference of like 3 cents versus 5 cents, you know, like, do I want to pay a little bit more to be able to have like that quality product and that, aesthetic? Again, I don't know how many times we can use that word, but I wanted to be able to have that because it matters. Like the breakable spoon, you know, like when you're dipping into a spoon, like it matters. You know, we ordered wooden spoons because I wanted that aesthetic. But when we're actually putting the wooden spoon in our mouth, you know, we do the test and it's like,
we're out.
This isn't going to cut it. Yeah. So, I mean, there was definitely thought that went into everything and really looking at breaking down the price because to me, it matters.
Well, you can tell as a customer, you can tell where a business cuts corners, right? And in a lot of cases, it's not necessarily the intent of those businesses to give subpar plating, gosh, I'm trying to think of the right word. Plating is really if it's the food's coming out to you, but let's just say once that thing is put in front of you, presentation. That's the word I'm like. Subpar presentation, right? So it's not that it's necessarily that they're looking to give subpar. It's the idea of going, look, I'm starting this up. I don't have a lot of money to be able to put into this. Or maybe that build of putting everything in there. I mean, it's a lot like our shop. We put this thing together and we think, okay, this is what it's going to cost us. And then we get into it like, oh, that's not what it cost us. There was a lot more behind that, And so businesses that have maybe a budget that's set aside for being able to get ready to get up and running end up kind of butting up against that budget. And then right when they're at the point of this is what's going to get produced every single time to a customer, they maybe decide to cut the expenses in the wrong place, right? And so what I'm curious to ask is do you feel like your marketing background with going to New York and all of that kind of stuff bled into that presentation thought process of what your customers would see when it comes out?
100%. Okay. I mean, New York is like the pinnacle of aesthetic, and whether it be fashion, food, everything, music, everything, celebrities are wandering those streets. So like, I always like to say that I was rubbing shoulders with celebrities, and so I think that definitely plays a part into our snow cone stand because it matters, like your perception of my snow cone stand matters. Like if it looks junky, if your spoon breaks every time, that's annoying. Sure. If the top of your snow cone is falling off, that's annoying. If you are, super conscious of recycling, my cups are biodegradable. That was something that I thought of. Like styrofoam is so wasteful. So I don't want people I want to capture that market. Not only do I want to capture that market, but I also want it to be functional. So if I can make it functional and sustainable in somewhat like of a way, then I'm going to do it, even if it costs me just a little bit more. Well,
and you're in the middle of an age range of change, right? Like you're in that age range of you're in that age range of like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, right? Like you're kind of right. TikTok. You're kind of right in between those groups of expectation as well too. Everything for the younger generation is presentation, right? And it's building, whether it's their social media or it's their side hustle or whatever it is that they're doing, it's building an image, right? And then on the front side of that is the we'll go closer to the Facebook side of it, where we say that's the budget conscious, long-term look. You're planning these things out. You have this vision that you want, but at the same time frame, you're sitting there going, okay, how can I build this for 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road? Whereas that younger generation's like, man, tomorrow I can drop this sucker and go do something else, or I'm not linked or hooked to any particular thing. But everything is met with the younger generation of, like you said, being Instagram worthy, being, experience worthy, that I need to document this for whatever, whether I'm sending it out as a text or whether I'm posting it on a page or whatever. And word of mouth now is not what word of mouth used to be. Word of mouth literally used to be word of mouth.
It was the review.
Yeah, it was phone call to your friend, wait till you see them in person. Now it is all based around instant review wherever you're at. You can be anywhere, like and sit there and go, I'm going to review this business. I'm going to leave them a Google rating. I'm going to tell them, my 10,000 followers, what I thought of it. And so everything leads back to an instant now, so when you produce this and again, having the thought process of being able to say, I want this to be Instagram worthy, is also met. I mean, think about how many times you've gone on to somebody's page, especially in the food service industry. You've gone on somebody's page or somebody's posted something or that business has posted something and it's almost like driving through a fast food, it is. I mean, it's like driving through a fast food drive-through. You see a picture of something up on the board, then you get home with it and you open it up and it's like,
this is nothing.
Yeah, like this didn't look anything like that on the board, And so that's disappointing for customers who are, especially if they're going to someplace for the first time. And I can think of some local businesses here that do the same thing. They put a lot of effort into this one picture-worthy deal, but what they give out day in and day out looks nothing like that picture-worthy deal. And again, that disappointment, it may still be a good product, but that disappointment from that customer visually when they first get it from them is kind of like, oh, this doesn't really look like what I saw on that Facebook page or whatever. You know, you've gone through all this effort, and you think about, you know, again, you probably know most of this from your marketing background, but there are people who are paid to make a burger look like the menu, and it's not edible. Like when they're done with it, you can't eat that burger that's in front of them.
Whenever I found that out, I was so
disappointed,
and I felt like a sense of betrayal. I'm like, oh, what do you mean?
You use what for lettuce?
Yeah. You put glue?
Yeah.
You put Elmer's cement glue on a burger?
You Mod Podge the bun? You know?
Yeah, it seems like so unethical, you know, but that's marketing.
It is legit the same thing of like seeing somebody in full blown makeup and seeing them not in makeup later on, like, you know, like, wow, whoa, okay, you know, but it's that same process of like, look, if you're going to push your product and you want that product to be Instagram worthy, well, you can make that product Instagram worthy and not produce that same type of product on the backside, and just be like, hey, here's the picture that got you hooked to come here.
Right.
And then
it's bait.
Here's what's left for you, you know? So that's not really what we do when we turn it out. And in your deal, you went as far, I know you and I were kind of talking about this. You went as far in the beginning to let the Instagram worthy picture dictate how you created the product, which then wasn't the best product. Yeah. Right. I mean, we're kind of talking about that. Like you were like trying to make the ice look a very specific way every time, very rounded. So you were kind of like packing it in there and then putting it into the cup so that everyone looked exactly very identical.
Consistent.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I got it, and then I went to put my spoon in it, and I'm like, oh, like I need to chip at this a little bit, you know, and because it's kind of been packed down a little bit. And while aesthetically it looked great, you know, it actually changed what your intention was. Yeah. Your intention wasn't to create that particular product on the backside. It was like, oh, look, it looks really good. But then one compromised the other. Yeah. Right. But then you started figuring out, okay, well, I can do it this way, still be Instagram worthy and everything else. But again, it's just these learning lessons, right? So this learning lesson of like, okay, here's how I envision the best way to do this, not realizing it would change the texture of my product here. And then I got Lowell that shows up over here who wants fluffy snow, you know, and it's not so fluffy because I packed it down to make it look a certain way. So let's lean in on that a little bit. You've been open now for a month, and that was kind of, again, right out of the gate, one of the learning lessons where you were like, okay. And it wasn't you that fixed it. Yeah. Right? Who fixed it for you?
One of my employees, shout out to Raquel. She actually had worked for a local small business back in her hometown of Belton for 6 years. So, you know, we were kind of like talking through it, and I told her like some feedback that I've gotten, and she was like, well, I mean, like, this is what we did at her place. And I was like, oh, but she was just kind of going along with what I wanted, right? Because not because I'm the boss or anything like that, but she knew that aesthetic that I was trying to go with, and the consistency and stuff. So, I mean, I use this term loosely, like there's a science in going into making a snow cone.
There is.
You can pack it and the syrup is going to pour nicely, or you can do it a different way and the syrup is still going to get on there, but it's going to look different, not, you know, drastically different, but it is going to be different every time. So, and it's the way that you pour the syrup, you know, or how many syrups you put on there or whatever. So, I mean, back to me being OCD is like, I've got a food scale that I was like, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put 30 grams of syrup on there. And then they're looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, no, this is what we're going to do. And they're like, but it doesn't like, it just makes it so much harder. And so as OCD as I wanted to be, I kind of just had to like let go a little bit and realize that this is the product that people want. Yeah. And as consistent as I want it, it's not necessarily about the look. Going back to aesthetic, I had to loosen up the reins on the aesthetic and know that the quality that they were getting was better. Like you said, you're not having to like crunch into that ice.
Well, and the last thing you want to do is you don't want to be sitting there, with a friend's business and going like, listen, I like the syrup. I just don't like the fact that I got to chip through this to get to it, and then I'm like, I know Deanna and I were kind of talking about it after that first round, because your first dry run wasn't like again, go big, go home. It wasn't like hey, we're just going to be open here and get like 10 people to kind of see what it is. Y'all decide to go to, CSHS and park in the parking lot, and you've got 100 people that are standing out there. And what was funny was, again, so that was our first opportunity to really try it with you guys. But you could see it. You could see, so you were packing this down, and then as it was coming out, you could see the top had a different color than the rest of it, right? And you knew right out of the gate, like, it's that trying to figure out how much syrup to how much ice, and then it's packed, so it's not really absorbing real well, and you can kind of see it. Well, after about, I think it was probably 8 that came out, then I noticed they got darker. Yeah. Right? And I'm like, oh, they figured it out. You could see like from top to bottom, the color was more consistent, but it was still hard. And it really wasn't until y'all got into your location that you kind of figured through that other process. Because I remember we were probably on, I don't know, Snow Cone 3, 4, whatever at this point. We were there all the time, but it was, like as soon as I did, you figured it out.
Yeah. I remember having that conversation. I like stepped out, and you were like, you did something different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it was, this was like, this is what I was kind of expecting from the first run, right? But again, it's not something that you've done in the past consistently enough to be able to identify that. Yeah. Again, allowing that aesthetic to overtake the quality, really, I guess is probably the best way to put it, became the challenges. Like, I still want them to look this way. This is what I put up on Facebook and Instagram and everything else. I want them to look this way, but ultimately in the long run, it can look a certain way and still not be quality wise what you wanted to produce. And so, it's always good that as an owner, especially in the business, I think it's really important for small business owners to listen into, is like, ideas are great. And ideas are great when you can go, okay, is this something I need to entertain as a thought? Am I getting pushback from people who are saying we need to like look at this? Are they just trying to be nice because they're like, hey man, I did my part and came out and supported a small business, but then they don't give you the feedback on it? And so then you don't want to go out there and go, SoCo Sno, they're the ones with the really hard, snow cones. It's
you don't want to be too critical.
Yeah, but you want people to give you feedback. When your customers show up, you go out and then kind of interact. Like, what do you think? What could we do different? Or and so that kind of leads into, I don't want to get off this topic yet. There's still a couple other things I want to get back to. We're going to come back to this, but I want to get into those lessons that you talked about. Like, so learning how to do that and not compromising. Because aesthetically they still look good, even in the process you guys are using now, and they come out and they taste great. But now what I want you to walk me through is lessons that you've learned in the first month of being open that like you didn't foresee when you started the business.
Going back to it just being something that was dreamt about COVID, and being a business owner, I will forever say that, I'm a corporate girl. Like, I want someone to give me that structure. But when you're doing it yourself, you have a way that you've done it in the past of being corporate and, having these rules lined out and everything like that. I'm hiring employees. How does this work? I have to go by Texas law, all of these things that are pretty well laid out for you, if you Google enough. But
or go to a website.
Yeah. But I think as we like really delved into it, because we were at first talking about opening last year, we were really pushing to open even in the fall. But we decided, obviously COVID is not going away. Like, maybe we just need to reset and give us more time. So we'll just open summer of 2020. So as the process is getting like closer to opening, the crunch time is just like, it's hitting, you know, and I'm freaking out like, oh my gosh, I've got to have all this stuff together. So,
and you're still testing the waters with where everybody's at with COVID.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen here? Are we going to stay closed? Or are we going to be open?
Do I have to make my employees wear masks? Do I have to make my customers wear masks? Like, because there's not, like, as far as like the city or the county is concerned, there isn't a roadmap necessarily of how, like, they're telling you, like, when you open this business, these are the things that you have to have for COVID.
Right.
So I think that was definitely something that I learned early on, was like, you're just going to have to find a roadmap that you feel comfortable with, and then go that route.
Well, there were a lot of businesses, I think, in that same avenue of, like, we talked about the lack of clarity. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that's necessarily like the city, state's fault, any of that, because everything was very fluid, right?
Yeah.
Like one day it's this, the next day it's this kind of deal. And as a business owner, you're having to jump and react to the fluidity of that change, you know? So if it's, okay, well, you don't have to wear masks. Now you do need to wear masks. No, you don't have to wear masks inside. No, you do need to wear masks inside. Oh, we're going to wear it outside, you know? And again, depending on where you're at in the United States, that looks completely different still as of today. But that lack of clarity was a struggle for business owners, because there was also that conversation and that talk about, if you don't do these things, here's what's going to happen. Yeah. Which most people, listen, if you weren't a small business owner, you probably didn't have a clue to this stuff. But there was talk that if you allowed people in your business that didn't have a mask on, that you were going to be fined as a business owner.
Yeah.
Or that you were going to be shut down.
Yeah.
And most of, that wasn't highlighted in the news. It wasn't highlighted for non-small business owners, or even non-business owners in general, to identify with. And in the world of COVID, where through social media, we've empowered people to be, and I want to use my words very carefully here. Bullies is not a good word, right? And I don't want to use Karen, but at the same point, to understand that we empowered people to be okay with the idea of pointing to you and going, you as a business aren't doing things to keep me safe or customer safe or whatever, at the expense of me being able to scold you.
Yeah.
Right? And so a lot of business owners were fearful of the idea that, number one, nobody wants to be the hot spot. Nobody wants to be the place that goes, we're just not going to do that, and to hell with everybody. And if they don't like it, and so be it. And then the next thing you know, they're the blow up central that 150 people came in contact with somebody and got sick. Nobody wanted that for any of their businesses. But the lack of clarity of where we needed to be, here we are armchair quarterbacking it almost a year later, and we go, oh, well, we know all these things. And had we known back then what we know now, this would all look completely different. I mean, we'd be 100% open right now, and things would have moved at a much more lightning pace. Yeah. But that's not where we were. So now people who build their business are trying to build it in also with the idea of, okay, yes, we are getting more open. Vaccines are becoming available. People are getting more comfortable with being out and doing all these other things. But I also want to have that game plan in place that if I have to go back, that I can do that easily without, it just costing us an arm and a leg, or costing us our business, if we have to close. So you're in that moment, you're in summer, you realize, like, at summer point now, people are starting to realize, like, camps aren't going off. People aren't out. Like, they're just not, like, congregating in places. And if you were, then you were shunned, or you were frowned upon or whatever. So now at this point you realize, okay, summer 2020 is probably not going to happen.
Not going to happen. And it was really disappointing, but then again, it's like, I have to realize that I established a business in 2020.
Yeah.
So Kason and I had many conversations of, like, okay, this is going to be the date that we open in 2020. And then that date comes around and we're like, okay, this is the date that we're going to open, in 2020. So, and like you said, we definitely wanted to be accommodating and have the perception that like we are being safe, even though all of our processes of making the snow cones was definitely safe. Like, are we going to make our employees wear masks? And after having conversations with our employees, it's like we all just felt like it would be better for them to mask because, like you said, you're going to be shunned if you're not. Yeah. Or people are definitely going to have opinions. Sure. So it's that weird line of making sure our employees feel safe, but then making sure that they're comfortable working, you know, like our building is a tight building and we usually have 2 people working in there. So having these conversations and then finally realizing like, at our first meeting, going back to our first meeting, it was like, okay, we're going to wear masks. We just decided, like, everyone was kind of on board with wearing masks. Well, then we all get in there working and we're like, gosh, it's hot. Like, even though it's air conditioned and stuff, it's tight. Yeah. And we're already in such close quarters. So does it defeat the purpose? Like just having all of those conversations that everyone is having. Right. But then it was, now we're just like, we're not going to mask. Most of us are vaccinated, so we're just not going to mask. Right. So I think that was my challenge and learning curve was first and foremost the COVID piece. And that definitely threw a wrench in it and just had conversations that I don't think as a business owner I was ever prepared to have.
Gosh, that's so interesting you brought that up because I've got a question in my mind that I was going to ask you. And I think that this is really relative to a lot of people who are listening. So back when this whole deal rolled out, let's skip back to March of 2020, April of 2020. And we had conversations and we were kind of on 2 sides of the page here, right? Like you and Kaysen were very much like, this is what needs to happen. It was very much like, things need to shut down. Everybody needs to do this. Everybody needs to, do their part. And, I'm not going to offend you. I know you well enough to know, like when I say the rhetoric, that's not offensive to you. I understand because we know each other well and we kind of know where each other's hearts are at with stuff. But then here I am with my business, right? And I'm sitting there going, our conversations would look like, Texas, they're just being a bunch of idiots and they just need to do all this and then we can go back to work and everything will be great, right? But nobody wants to do their part. Right. And it all needs to happen all at one time so that everything goes away. And then I'm over here going, I know where my business is at right now and I can't, if I do this, then we may not have a business to go back to, right? And so after you've gone from that thought process to seeing it work out and you didn't have a business at that time. Mm-hmm. So now I want to flash forward and let's replay 2020, March, April with your business now open. Mm-hmm. What would your thought process be?
It's really interesting that you say that because I think even now we're kind of, I use the word struggling lightly, because we are so new, but looking back, if I was to have been operating in a COVID, like mid-COVID world, it would be hard because I feel like, my beliefs and would be contradictive of my...
They would have intersected.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know, like, I can't stay closed. Like, even now, like, you're fighting labor versus sales.
Right.
So, oh man, I don't know. I think it would have been really hard to mitigate.
Well, and this is really where the rubber separated from the road with a lot of people. If you were in small business or if you were affected by a shutdown where there wasn't money bailing you out, there wasn't unemployment, there wasn't that kind of stuff that was available or whatever, and you're just supposed to suck it up buttercup and your business hopefully makes it, hopefully doesn't. I mean, you can look over in like in California, man, I think the number's like 70% of most restaurants closed down, right? But not because of COVID as much as it was of regulations behind all of that and how they were structured. And so people who are business owners were sitting out there like, listen, I want to do my part, just much the same way as I'm sure you would be in that boat. Like, I want to do my part, but not at the expense of my business not being able to come back up and open again.
Yeah.
Not at the expense that I've got to call these employees and tell them they no longer have a job. Not at the expense of losing the dream that I've worked so hard to build up to. And now here, because this easily could have gone another direction.
Yeah.
Y'all could have made the decision to open in June. And realistically, if that happens, y'all probably aren't in business today.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a unique situation because we were able to do this, without having to take out a lot of loans or having to get a lot of help. But that's still your money, that's still your investment. Yeah. So you're still wanting to like recuperate some of those costs that you've spent. And even still today, it's like, now I have employees that I'm having to think of.
That you're responsible for.
Yeah. I can't even imagine having to have done that in June.
Yeah.
Luckily it was like, we have this idea, we know we're going to open, but we hadn't hired anyone.
Right.
So it would have been so disappointing, obviously, because I don't think anyone wants to see their business fail or not be able to be successful. But
the perception outside in, if you don't have a business, is the idea that somehow businesses have insulated themselves to be able to do that and still be able to bounce back, which that's not the case for 95% of businesses, probably, right? Most of them are not structurally built enough to be closed as long as a lot of them were to come back up, which is why you're seeing the biggest struggle right now being in the restaurant industry, the bar industry, even the gym industry. Those three probably the hardest hit, with the recovery being much slower in those areas as well too. And so I think what's really great about talking about it here on the podcast is that you live both sides of that coin.
Yeah.
You live the non-business owner life over here where you're like, everybody just do your part and we'll call this thing done. And then realizing that's not going to materialize, to, oh my gosh, had we launched this and been going, we would have literally built all this stuff onto a trailer and got all this stuff done and put all this time and investment and money into to be selling it at this point, or to give it to somebody to turn it into a little small tiny home or whatever,
just gut it all.
But I want people to hear that, because I think that it's important that both sides of your intention, neither one of those is wrong.
Yeah.
It's not wrong to think where you were before, but it's a different perspective and a different side of the road to be on this other side over here and go, okay, now I understand why these businesses didn't want to do these things. Whereas that vision may have been, you didn't want to, again, I'm choosing my words here carefully, so don't read too much into this word, but comply, right? Like, you didn't want to be a good business owner / person / human / whatever to do these things to protect people, to save lives. I mean, there are still people today that have... I was scrolling through some of my friends' pages, and they still have like the little portrait frame that says "Stay home, save lives."
Oh yeah,
they still have that on there, and it's like, man, look at that statement a year down the road from where we're at. And while the intention was good in the beginning based on what was known, now looking back on that, you see and even feel the pushback from people now that are like, enough's enough.
Yeah.
Like, let's start, what's my purpose of vaccinating here if we can't go back to where we came from? And so as a business owner, again, a tough lesson to be learning if you're knee deep in the middle of it and having to shut up. And there were literally businesses that went from 100% business to zero.
Yeah.
And again, how these businesses not building in a backside support to be closed for 2, 4, 6, 8 months before they can get reopened. And once you reopen, knowing the right time, because there's no such thing like, if I open it, will they come?
Yeah.
You know, it's the build it, they'll come, but if I open it, will they come? And how many people are comfortable doing this? And think about even right now, look at Chick-fil-A is a good example. I mean, they haven't opened their inside. We're a year removed and they haven't opened their inside, but they've figured out like, hey, people are willing to do our business on the drive-through side. And so what are you saving by doing that? You know, I don't have to hire all these extra employees. I don't have to have all these extra chemicals, the cleaning, the all the stuff, you know. And so while people look at it and go, I don't understand why they ain't open, you got to also understand that, you know, the extra added expense to open the inside is huge.
Yeah, it's a lot.
You know, and there's a lot that's in there. And, you know, as a business owner now, having this business, you realize that on a day in, day out structure, the majority of your controllable expenses is in your wages, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
you're going to pay water, you're going to pay electric, you're going to pay supplies, you're going to things that you can't control. But wages is something you can. And you're sitting there going, okay, do I keep Sally here? Do I send Sally home? And so, again, another learning lesson out of this that I think you were probably going to allude to is your initial opening hours.
Yeah.
You know, so initially you opened up, and so your official opening date, well, no, we won't say official because your official opening date, grand opening, ribbon cutting deal kind of got canceled here or whatever. But
thanks, Rain.
Yeah, exactly. It's been all over the place these days. So your official, when you opened up and started serving people was in April, right? And then it became this deal of like, okay, I'm going to open from here to here. But then you kind of started noticing like, okay, this window of time here isn't working. Like I'm paying people to be here during this time and there's nobody getting snow cones. Like, cause your initial was it 11:30 to 8?
Yeah. 11. So Saturdays, 11:30 to 8, Sundays, 12 to 6.
Right.
And then Monday through Friday, since most of my employees are in school, high school or college kids,
Right.
I had to kind of navigate around their schedules. So it's going to be Monday through Friday, 4 to 8.
Right.
Grand opening day comes around 11:30 to 8. You know, luckily I had a lot of support kind of built in my friend groups and stuff to where it made the grand opening day super successful.
Right.
Sunday comes around 12 to 6. Still super successful because I still think we're kind of riding that like opening wave.
Yep.
And then Monday hits and we're 4 to 8 and people are still excited, but people have responsibilities.
Yeah.
So Tuesday, Wednesday, 4 to 8, Thursday, and I'm just like watching the cells in real time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is not working.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at my labor versus my cells and I'm like, I'm in the red.
Yeah.
And I think you know, you would know this, it's kind of to be expected, you know, at the very beginning.
Sure.
But how long?
Yeah. Where are you going to settle in at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I really started to kind of like evaluate everything, and Kason and I had some conversations, and it was like, it sucks, you know, for our employees to be losing hours in this initial time. But the way that I have to look at it is like you said, would I rather be open for a longer amount of time, like months, years?
Yeah.
Or do I just like have these employees here and just be a good boss and have them making money, you know? Like it's such a fine line.
Listen, what most people will never experience unless they've been responsible for managing people. And this was a terrible place to find myself over 30 years of managing operations and being responsible for payroll is you can cut hours, right? But you don't want to make that a habit.
Yeah.
Because then what happens is, and especially for like part-timers, really impactful for full-timers. Because most of your full-timers in business they need those jobs to pay their bills, support their family, everything else, right? In a world where it's part-timers, now all of a sudden you can go, okay, hey, this week we're a little slow, man. I'm going to cut like 2 hours, 3 hours off your schedule. I know you're working like 18 this week, so I'm going to cut you back to 15, right? it becomes critical that most business owners are able to wrap their heads around the idea. Is it better to cut hours or cut bodies?
Yeah.
And while, cutting bodies feels terrible, and you never want to see the person that you spent the time hiring and the investment and training and everything else go, the reality becomes you could have a crew of 6 be all irritated with you because they don't get the hours that you'd initially talked about when you hired them on, at the expense of like not having to make that call to eliminate Emily over here or Sam over here or whatever. And I can go, okay, I can eliminate 18 hours out of my schedule by eliminating one person.
Yeah.
And that's a hard place for a business owner to lay into, because you're building up on the front side. You're going, we're a family and I want you to love working here and all this other stuff. And then all of a sudden the real world hits you when it comes to all of that. And you're going to have these ebbs and flows in business. When you guys hit the summer, I mean, y'all will hit full stride and you'll really, truly get to see what the business looks like in the summer. And then you got to kind of make that decision on the backside of the year of what are we going to do from November on? Like, I know there's going to be college kids here. And again, these restaurants, these businesses that are in town that are dependent upon college students, you see the ebb and flow in their, even in their personnel. Like they'll have people all over the place while the students are here. Students go away. Those people go away, and you kind of hope maybe that some of them are college students who just go away. But then if you're hiring the college student on, you have to be flexible. Yeah. You have to understand you're always going to be number 2 at best, that their school's going to come first. And you've got to make decisions that are best for your business and preservation for your business. Yeah. So there is something to be said. Now, one of the things that I always found is when I had to release somebody because I could no longer afford to do that. And I didn't want to keep each week going, okay, you're going to give me 2 hours, you're going to give me 4 hours, you're going to give me 3 hours. And knowing that I'm doing, and each week they're just going, well, what am I going to lose this week? Right. And then eventually they start going, I got to go find a job that's actually going to be consistent. Not
dependable.
Right. And so they don't work as hard for you. They don't feel as invested anymore. And you want them to, but now all of a sudden you got to go, okay, listen, man, like as much as I don't want to lay somebody off, I'm going to have to do that here in this moment. And again, if you've never done it, if you've never been around it, then you don't have a good comprehension for that business skill set, because it is a skill set.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to go so long in the red because you feel horrible.
Yeah.
Right? You'll feel really horrible when, the
you don't have a business.
comes crashing down and burning all around you. And when you know that really payroll is your most controllable expense, that you can make a quick knee-jerk reaction and affect it. When we ran through P&L reviews with Walmart, it was, listen, man, we're not going to have another month like this. And you came out of those meetings going, okay, well, I know that 70% of my total expenses is running through payroll. And if I'm going to make an instant impact, this is what I'm going to have to do. And I'll have to have a plan to recoup from that, because I'm going to come out of this season and go into my busy season. Yeah. Right. For you guys, it's probably a little tough as well, too, because you're literally a month out from your busy time kickoff. I mean, once school gets out, everybody's flexible. You know that this season they're going to have camps and summer stuff going on. People are going to be out and about. You want to be cautious not to knee-jerk reaction that real quick, and then you're going to have to turn right around and go hire somebody in 3 weeks.
Well, and I think that that's something that I've definitely learned in the past month is, like, yes, I do have these people, and yes, I may be in the red, but right now the only way that I can kind of justify it is we're learning, we're training.
Sure.
So it may be, I'm not making money necessarily, or a lot of money, but they're learning the business, because a lot of my employees haven't ever made a snow cone.
Right.
They haven't ever been around this. They've been in.
Might be their first job.
Yeah. Some of them have been in the food industry, but it's like Freddy's or, something totally different. Yeah. So
propped up by corporate money.
Yep.
No problem. We'll get through this. When you got the big corporate umbrella over you, it makes things feel a little different.
Well, and I definitely think that it's been those conversations, like you said, of like, as much as like I am your boss, we are a family, and we have to see all sides of it. And even having the conversations with the high schoolers, it's like, we have to understand, getting them to understand that, like, yes, it's hard whenever you're not working, you know, what you were scheduled.
Yeah.
But know that, like, I'll make it up to you in the summer.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'll make it up to you during our busy season, because right now I have to cut this right here to be able to give you this in the summer or during our busy season.
Well, and you envision it as a business owner. You envision the dream of your business as being a place that people want to come and work. But let's be real honest. I mean, who's sitting out there going, you know, I want to go be the manager of a snow cone stand. I want to go be the assistant manager of a snow cone stand. You know, and those are really just titles when it comes down to it, right? And so the idea is you're going to see younger people in that type of operation because of the fact that they're just maybe trying to get experience, working at some place. It's got flexibility for me. I can learn a skill set here, which the skill sets really in that deal are not just the production skill sets, but it's that customer interaction skill set. And so I think it's valuable for people, again, to hear that and see that, because the assumption is just, if you launched your business, well, you were ready to go.
Yeah.
And then you really don't know how ready to go you are until the settle in happens. It's like you were saying, the newness wears off. And then you really figure out, like, okay, where did we carve ourselves, our identity in the business world of South College Station with the people that are around you? This is where, again, social media becomes really important. Word of mouth becomes important. You know, the one thing, and I've heard Sam Smith talk about it a lot, we've talked about it in several of the business meetings, is what does it cost you? And have you ever really thought of the idea of how much value there is? I mean, people will put money in a tip jar, right? But when you think long term, is it the tip jar money that you're really looking for, or would it be somebody who walks in and goes, I'm going to leave you a review?
Yeah.
I'm going to share my experience on my page. I'm going to go and post this on Nextdoor. I'm going to go post this on BCS Meals and Deals. You know, I mean, those carry way more value than the dollar that goes in the tip jar. And I'm not discouraging tipping, but I am saying that most people will put the dollar in and go on about their day. Whereas as a new business that's not 100% established and is still trying to get that information out there, they need people to go in there and give those reviews, give their shares, tell people about what they had, blow it up so that it's something that you're going to be doing almost what probably feels like full time, you know, trying to advertise and get it out in front of people and everything else. But the more customers where you create raving fans, you also create raving reviews that then lead down into other people who, you know, hey, snow cone in South College Station. Is there any snow cone places in South College? Let me look. And then they go on there, and then boom. And then SoCo Sno's sitting over here with 50 reviews, you know, 4.5, 5 stars, you know, oh, hey, well, let me go check this place out. And we know that those move up and down that spectrum also by two ways. Most people are not aware of like SEOs and things like that move people up and down and based on how people search, but they also move in interaction. More interaction. If 500 people go and review your business, you're going to move up that page just autonomously through Google's or Yelp or whoever through their AI metrics that they have in there. And again, people don't hear and see that. So as a business owner, I think it's critical, especially for new businesses, that they get that opportunity to have those customers go in there. And you almost have to program your employees to sit there and go, hey, man, if you really loved what we did, we'd really love to hear from you. You know, so.
Well, and I think that plays into, you know, having a younger staff also and getting them to understand, like, we have to have reviews. Like, I remember, you know, after grand opening, I had my first Google review and I was like, oh my gosh, like someone reviewed it. And it wasn't anyone I knew, you know, so it made it feel even that much more real.
Yes.
Because I didn't say anything.
Yeah. You didn't have to like poke and prod.
Yeah. I didn't have to incite them. Like, if you do this, I'll give you 10 snow cones, you know, like it felt so good. And even though my background is marketing, like, Google My Business has been my best friend because again, speaking to corporate world, all that stuff is done for you. Yeah. But when you're doing it yourself, it means so much more because you have put the time into it. So it really does feel like your labor of love is like, it's like your ROI.
Yeah. So, well, and let's be honest. Again, if you don't do this as a business and social media is of no concern to you for your business and all you do is just put stuff and posts up or whatever, you don't understand the amount of, like, you could kill your business advertising through social media.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that expensive. Yeah. It's very interesting. I've talked to a lot of folks who are like, listen, don't waste your money here, put your money here. Mm-hmm. And it's always valuable to have mentors, people who can speak back into that to help guide people to spend their money in the right locations. Mm-hmm. Again, we talk about these generational gaps, right? So in my generation, it's radio and TV.
Yeah.
Radio and TV is dead in advertising for most businesses now. Now you've got to be in places like Facebook, Instagram. I mean,
you have to be in TikTok. Is that what you were going to say?
I know. You heard my big sigh, right? But let me give you an example. So we started TikTok initially in the beginning, but then we started talking about it like, is this our customer? Like is this really our customer that's watching TikTok? And now the longer that it's gone on, I'm like, it might be our customer because now I'm the almost 50-year-old guy that's swiping through these things, and these little 30-second videos, 60-second videos is like captured my attention, right? Mm-hmm. So the other day we started one. I think I sent y'all the link or whatever to the one, and I popped it on there. That one video upload in 2 days had 700 views.
Yeah, it's insane.
And I'm like, what in the world? Like, I didn't do anything other than put a couple of hashtags in there and put it on there. And now if I take that video and I put that video on Facebook, I might have 20 views.
Right.
30 views. Even maybe 100 views.
Yeah.
Right? But Facebook doesn't algorithm this deal to pop up into my feed automatically. Right. It kind of chooses and hides and what's my interaction with people and how do I interact with Facebook. If I do little interaction in Facebook, then Facebook does little to help me. And so, but if I'm on the TikTok side of it, those hashtags that I put in there, they're not tied into the AI of funneling as much as if somebody goes in there and says signs, hashtag signs, boom, here's my video, and it's going to pop in there, and they have the option to see all these videos. And like, oh, well, there's one. And you've got to be really thoughtful in processing your cover picture or your cover of the video. Like if it's something that somebody doesn't look at and go, what is that? To encourage them to click on it. Like if it's just something very plain or a black screen or whatever, most people are not going to click on it. I mean, there's so much that goes in behind the advertising, and so much. And small businesses, especially ones that start up, because you're not sitting out there selling $40 snow cones, right? So it's not like you have this huge influx. You've got to sell a ton of snow cones to support the advertisement dollars that you would put out for it. And so it's critical also that people understand, like, I will go places and put it on my personal Facebook page. Now, I know that I have friends who are on that Facebook page, but that's really not my best opportunity to help that business. Yeah. My best opportunity is to go to the Google review, to go to their page if they have the option on their page to take in a review. Some people have created web pages where they can literally review them directly on their web page. Google review, Yelp. In those areas, there are people that it's funny, if you go in there are people, when they put their review, they have like little pins by their name, like top reviewer or something like. I mean, they do it all the time. And so it's important that those people, while they can help, they can also hurt. And it's important that businesses provide top notch to every single person. I've always told people that have worked for me, you never know who the person is in front of you. Listen, I don't care who you are. I will guarantee you at some point that the president of the United States took their kid somewhere to get a snow cone. Yeah. Right? You don't know who's going to show up or who's going to be in front of you or how influential that person may be, or the celebrity that shows up or local celebrity that shows up, where you can sit there and go, hey, can I take a picture? And do you mind if I post this on my page? And all that kind of stuff.
Like if Johnny Manziel came to SoCo Sno,
Yeah, this is true. This is true. Depending on which Johnny Manziel shows up there, man. If he's shotgunning 12 beers, you probably don't want that picture. But if it's good Johnny and he's on his deal, then that's probably a good deal to have. I'm just messing if Johnny's out there listening. So,
Johnny, we love you, even though you're at the Browns.
It's got to be what it's got to be. So, here's when we talk about what you're learning in the business and everything else as a small business owner, I think it's also teaching and training customers that same deal. I don't as a business want to go out and beg for reviews, but I do hope that my customers understand the value of reviews that happen when that process takes place, when that transaction, when that exceeding your expectation has happened, Now, people are very quick to do the exact opposite when it's horrible.
Oh, yeah.
Like they are quick to go and pull a trigger on.
Well, and that's why back to, training these employees of mine is like, we have to be nice and like, not just nice, like we have to be kind.
Yeah.
Especially coming out of 2020, like it matters, BCS Mills and Dills, like, people will say something, whether it's good or bad, and we do not want to be the one that's bad, because when it's bad, you're done.
Oh yeah. Imagine if it's bad and it's on BCS Meals and Deals.
Yeah.
27,000 people right there on the spot.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking is like those people that consistently post on, BCS Meals and Deals, even though it's on Facebook, even though it may be not one of our like top marketing platforms, it matters because there's so many people and so many people depend on those people that are saying something like, what's the Wendy Flynn, she's like one of the top posters in a lot of groups that I'm in. So it's like, even though she may just be a normal person, like I think people take what she says to heart because everything she's recommended or not recommended, it's played out to be true.
It resonates.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, I guess, enlightening these high schoolers that are working for me and college kids, because in their world, it doesn't really matter because I think that they take what their parents say. But it's like, I want their parents, you know, I may not want you, but I want your parents because your parents are the one that are going to be paying for it or taking you places or giving you the yes or no. So it has been a lot of, like you said, just going out. And I think it just comes in my personality, like going out and really talking to these people when they come and interacting, because like, I just want to have a conversation with you. I'm not asking you to leave me a review, but I just want to see what you think, because it's valuable to me, because if there's something that I can change back to the ice or how we're doing it, it really does affect my business in the long run.
Sure. Well, how many times do you see a negative review left, or somebody goes and puts up something on a page, and then usually some of the first knee-jerk reaction responses, which are good knee-jerk reaction responses, are, did you talk to the manager?
Yeah.
Did you talk to the owner? Before you came on here and decided to blow somebody up, did you try and even see if they would make it right? You know, and again, people are quick these days just to pull a trigger and, you're dead to me and move on, not realizing that they have the ability to really do some damage to businesses.
Yeah.
And that may make them feel good if they're mad in that moment. But, I can't tell you how many people I've talked off a ledge that was really mad at us at a Walmart. You can imagine how many people get mad at Walmart. And you got to talk these guys off a ledge and figure out,
how can we make it better?
Yeah, what did we do wrong? Tell me what we've done wrong. And then in a lot of cases, I don't necessarily always have the best... I don't have a canned response. I don't have the best solution to that. I have the ability to be able to listen. And then if I'm in this gray area where I'm not real sure what we could do here to make this right for the customer, I ask, tell me what I can do to make this right for you. And a lot of people don't want to ask that question because the first initial thought sometimes from the manager or the owner or whatever is they want something for nothing.
Yeah, money.
They want
revenue.
They want their meal free. They want, they want me to give them something or whatever. And that's not the case. They are in most cases letting you know that you fell short of what their expectation was. And if you understand that you run your business at a high expectation all the time, you usually never short the guys who have the lower expectations. I mean, if you just run high expectation all the time and again, I'll reference back to Chick-fil-A where, your expectation at Chick-fil-A every time you go through and you get something is that somebody says,
"My pleasure."
Exactly. And then, but I won't say where I went through a location and the girl goes, "Thanks." And it caught me off guard.
Yeah.
Now I don't go back and go, "You're not going to believe that I just went through the window and they didn't say my pleasure," knowing how important that is to their corporate culture, right? Like it's a culture that's built into it, and not really realizing how quickly that caught my attention because it's been ingrained in the culture of me going there all the time, So, but also at that same point, I'm sure as the manager there, I would want to know, but as the used to run a multi-million-dollar operation, I'm sitting there going, listen, they got way more things on their plate. But how many more thanks are going to go through that drive until you reach the person who wants to be the social media warrior?
Yeah.
To blow that business up or blow the person up or whatever. So really, I mean, for small businesses just in general, that word of mouth and those reviews become really critical. But for new businesses especially, you really want to go out. And if you have a great experience, if you go out to SoCo Sno, you love the snow cone, you took a picture of it, you took a picture with your family and everything else, not only can you go on there and leave those reviews, go on there, tag the business. Let that run back to the business page so that people get to see that as well too. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you can do to help small businesses out when you're there, other than just spend the money. I mean, all the businesses need the money, right? But at the same point, man, the little extra goes a long way for businesses. So what else? Any other things that you've learned in that process? I mean, I know you've learned a lot of stuff as far as product controls. The one thing that comes to mind for me is you're in an industry where flavors are always changing in and out and everything else. And we were just talking like you're a month in and you're like, I got to reprint my
my $200 menu board that I was like, I waited until the very last minute to print that. And had Kason like wait to build the frame that it even went in because I was like, I don't know, like, let me just sit with this. Like, I just need to like, cuddle it for a little bit. Yeah.
As a part of your, again, as a part of the dynamics that you want that, look for your business, looks great. But I think you're probably also in that world where like, now all of a sudden I kind of understand what chalkboards look like.
And that's the thing. I think luckily I have a pretty good relationship with a local like small business printer.
Right.
Hashtag copy stop. If you're listening, luckily I feel like they're reasonably priced. I feel like I can kind of talk to them about what I'm wanting. Instead of just like sending it off to a random printer and then they just print it. There's no,
get it.
Yeah, maybe I get it. Maybe it's done right. Maybe the colors are exactly what I want. Maybe they're not. Right. But
you're keeping your money local.
Yeah, keeping our money local and the flavors, it's like Rachel and I sat down one day and we literally wrote down, like, I still have it. I don't think I'll ever get rid of it now. We wrote down like flavors and really thought through. I mean, there was a lot of Googling. There was a lot of like, what do people want this? Do people not want this? And mixing flavors and kind of thinking about what flavors we would have that we could mix together instead of having an individual concentrate.
Right.
So then we're thinking about the money aspect there too. But now, a month into it, I'm like, no one wants chai. No one wants a chai snow cone. Why did I even think that was a good idea? So
that was so New York of you.
Yes, very New Yorker. People have told me like, oh, well, you should do this, or specifically, one of my friends, she told me about the marshmallow. And marshmallow topping is apparently a big thing in Baltimore. And I don't know. I've never been to Baltimore. I've never lived in Baltimore.
Right.
I didn't necessarily eat snow cones in New York, even though that's on the East Coast. But I ordered this marshmallow, and she's been like talking it up on her Facebook. And people are coming back, and they're like, "Where's the marshmallow? It's not on the menu." And I'm like, "I know. I'm reprinting the menu." So it's those little things that I've learned by word of mouth, like we're talking about.
Yeah.
That matters, that even though it may cost me money to reprint, like, yes, it does hurt, but I would rather it be on the menu instead of having, like, yes, it's kind of fun to have that, like, secret item, but it's worth it for me to reprint for people to know that it exists.
Yeah.
Or we have it.
And aesthetically, you don't want, like, let me go take and do my Dynamo label printer and go over the top of all this stuff or put another deal in there. I mean, it doesn't fit the aesthetics of what it is that you're looking for. But again, to that customer who doesn't have that clue, you're talking about a $200 menu board. You know, that's money that has to go out of pocket for you because you're sitting there going, these are all flavors that I think are going to be important. And listen, food service in general, I don't know there's a restaurant out there that for, let's just call it 3 years, has had probably the same identical menu. They constantly take things off and on. Yeah. And a lot of that is based on, again, feedback that they receive. Like, listen, we have this and we have never sold it.
Yeah.
I had somebody on here that talked about crab, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the entire conversation, but they're like, we never sold that. So we did away with it, and it was expensive. I think it might have been Tap. It was Tap, as a matter of fact. We're talking another broken egg. And he's like, we never sold it. And yet I ordered it. It went bad. I threw it away.
Yeah.
I ordered it again. It went bad. I threw it away. And all these things, I mean, same deal with syrup. I mean, they're going to have a life, they're going to have a life expectancy on there. They're going to have an expiration date where you got to move away from it. And so, the great thing about the business that you're in is you can visibly walk into your trailer. I'm an idiot, and I can walk into your trailer and tell you what's selling and what's not just by looking at your bottles. So if I see a bottle that's low, I know that that's obviously a high seller. If I see one that looks like it doesn't have a drop of syrup on the pour and it's full to the rim, then I know that that's not. And so I told you, when we got open, I'm like, dude, you got to get chocolate, and you're like, who in the world wants chocolate on their
I
snow
think that
cone?
I actually threw up in my mouth a little bit when you told me.
Let me tell you what, man, I'm telling you that. So you talked about the marshmallow. And so, cause my deal was I wanted chocolate banana, right? And so that's what I started with you when you got it, but then it went chocolate cream marshmallow topping. And I'm like, this is legit. Like, this tastes like ice cream. Yeah. And I'm like giving it, listen, I probably shouldn't say this on air because I'll probably get in trouble for it because it's definitely not COVID friendly. But,
it's fine.
I'm pretty sure I shared my spoon with like 6 people that were out there. And I'm like, you got to try this. And everybody's eating off the same spoon and stuff. So if there's an outbreak, you can put my name to it, I guess.
Super spreader.
It was awesome, though. I mean, it was, and it tasted great, but then you guys also, like, you've learned some things here as well of stuff, flavors that, again, whether you knew they existed and you're kind of like, I don't really know, or things that you're going, somebody's fed back to you, like you were talking about the marshmallow topping from the one that was up in Baltimore. They were sitting there going, because I was sitting there the day that the one came up to you and go, I really want the Mardi Gras?
The Mardi Gras king cake.
Yeah, like, I really want that. And you're like, I got it. It's
not
on the menu. But she's already ordered something else at this point. So again, that leads back to the importance of what you're saying about keeping my menu current and letting people
having those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back and having those conversations, because if I wasn't out there, I wouldn't have been able to even know that she wanted it. Yeah. But I bought it on a whim. In fact, it's just a sample that I had purchased from the company that I get my syrups from. Yeah. So it's not even made up. And then she's like, oh yeah, Mardi Gras king cake. I'm like, wait, like, did you know I ordered this? Like, that's the most random thing that I just randomly ordered because, we're kind of close to Louisiana. So I have some Cajun friends. So I was like, I'm just going to get it. Yeah. So.
Well, then I show up last time and you're like, you got to try this key lime pie.
Oh my God.
Right. And then you do the key lime pie, brought it out. We test tried that. But then I saw one that you did for a customer, and yours again was kind of the extra over the top. It had graham cracker,
lime wheel, and whipped cream.
Yeah, I mean, you're like, here you go. I'm like, well, mine don't look like that.
Yeah, it's a premium flavor.
Yeah, well, it looked premium. Yeah, and it tasted great. I mean, that was really the big thing. Was I know as soon as we sat down, Cason's like, you got to try this because this is like top end.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's really good. And then the jalapeno stinger was the other one. You're like, you got to try this too. And I'm like,
it sounds gross.
It does. And then I tried it. And then even when my kid tried it, and my kid's like, that's not bad. I'm like, wow. Like, this kid would never entertain the thought of doing any of that, So it is, to an extent, in your business, you're also teaching and training while your customers are coming. Like, how many people show up at the window and they're like, "Yeah, I don't really know what I want." You know, then
we actually have a flavor called I Don't Know, and then that's just like the Sno-ristas, like discretion of what they want.
Nice.
Want to make you. So,
but I mean, in that interaction with those customers as well too, you're sitting there going like, "What are some of your favorite things?
Yeah.
What do you like?" You know, and then they can kind of go, "Oh, okay. Well, based on what you told me, how about this?" You know, and walk a customer back through there. And you really, honestly, if you were going to do a full blown menu board, it would be bigger than the size of the place.
My gosh,
I mean, you know, you would need that entire thing in order to be able to put it up on that entire wall. And so, especially when you're talking about mixing and people who come in and go, "I really like this and this," and some people have some really unique, I won't use the word weird, we'll say unique,
well, I mean, for instance,
flavors.
I just talked about chai,
Yeah.
and I don't think we've done chai. Luckily, I just want to put this out there that even though we have all of these flavors, they do last a relatively long time. Right. So without even preservatives, we can keep them for a long time.
Yep.
So the chai has been sitting there for a month now. Yep. And the other day I was looking back at some transactions and I saw that a customer did like chai latte and coconut, you know, and I was like, okay, that is the most random thing, but they did it. And I don't know if they did it because, you know, no one else may have chai latte around here, or because they just wanted to experiment. So I think having those kind of things is something that I'm willing to do as a business owner, is maybe have the ones that some customer or some places don't have. But like you said, to train my customers, like we have to go to SoCo Sno because they have chai.
Right. So, well, and in that training process also, you don't have the corporate hoops to jump through to have to approve any of this stuff. You're like, let's do it. You know, that's a great idea. I hadn't heard that one. Mm-hmm. You know, so you can kind of make these decisions on the fly. It may be that there's a flavor somebody asked for, which is literally just a small add-on flavor to something that you already have. But, you know, maybe you don't need the full bottle of syrup to do that. You need a little smaller one as an add-on to it or whatever. So, you know, it's interesting in a business that you can manipulate, move, change on the dime while the customer's there, you know, that you can build flavors for a customer that may be so unique that, again, you've never thought of it. Yeah. Or they end up leaving and you're going, "That's really interesting. I'm going to make one so I can try that. I just want to see what that's like." Right? You know, where I wonder what that really tasted like when they left out of here. Or it's a flavor that you've never heard of before, but they like referenced chocolate it.
On a snow cone.
Listen, man, come on now.
It's so good. I'm going to give you credit, but I literally had to research that. And I think that that's something else is like, I didn't know, but where you're from, San Antonio area, apparently that's a big thing. So I was like, well, the place that I don't normally get my surfs from, I'm going to have to go outside of that, which is fine. But then I got it and I was like, this is actually really good. And also learned that the place that I got it from is actually really good quality too. So not having that corporate structure allowed me to be able to do that.
You can move around and find different vendors if you need to in order to be able to provide the best high quality stuff that you get. And your syrups aren't cheap. I mean, again, you didn't opt into the syrup world to go, let me go get the cheapest I can find. You opted in for, again, like aesthetics and everything else. I go high side here because I want premium product coming out. You know, I'll tell you about a flavor. Don't let me forget when we get off of air here. I won't put it on here, but a flavor.
Because it might be a secret flavor.
It might be. Based on where you're at, though, and you said the San Antonio deal. Some of my San Antonio friends, if they listen to this, will probably know what I'm talking about. Because you are across from a Mexican food restaurant.
Very true.
So if you're not from San Antonio, there's a flavor there that I'm going to tell you about when we get done here that, you know, I'm just saying, like, those people just might, you know, move from there out to you. So, but ideally, in the business that you've started up in and all of these things that you've learned and the flexibility that you have to be able to move based on customer feedback, interaction, instant visibility of what's selling, what's not. Let's remove this. Let's put this up. And knowing, though, also that if you're trying to keep those aesthetics that you will probably print that menu board 6 more times before it's all said and done. Let's talk a little bit about your future plans for SoCo Sno based on what you've seen. I mean, right now I understand, like, We're talking about you had to manipulate your hours backwards a little bit and only be open for a smaller window than you wanted to because that volume's just not there yet.
Yeah.
Some of that is just natural in the idea of people are at the tail end of things. They're at the tail end of school.
Yeah.
You've got students that just left. You've got things that are kind of going on here. But the interesting part also about College Station is I always thought in the idea that there's 68,000 students that go to Texas A&M. Mm-hmm. And if let's just divide that by 4, and so we're going to say that's
I'm not good at math.
I know my math is really terrible here, but we're we're going to go back in there and we're going to call that about 17,000. In each class, freshmen. Well, that means 17,000 new incoming freshmen. Of that 17,000, how many of them have never been in College Station, never been in Bryan? And so now all of a sudden it is that deal. Like that's a constant reload every time that you see the new season of A&M coming around. And as it gets hotter, so goes the snow cone stand. Like the hotter it is, man, let's go do this. And right now you're in the 70s, low 80s. You're still new in there. You've still got kids that are in school. The window's pretty tight from when they get out of school to when they got to be home and in bed. The weekends right now, the weekends are decent for you. Yeah. But you've got to kind of shorten these windows down. And even like some of the local places are closed for months at a time, and which that's not your goal. Your goal is to kind of figure a niche somewhere on the backside there that you can continue to stay operational year long.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about future plans based on, not necessarily what you see right now, because I know what you see right now is like, I hope this happens and I hope these things happen. But what you envision long term over the next year to 2 years, where do you see SoCo Sno growing?
I mean, as far as like location, I definitely would love to stay in South College Station, and like we talked about, that maybe moving further out. We've kind of had some discussions with some other businesses in town of maybe collaborating with them and, parking our trailer in their parking lot if they have space. Mm-hmm. But as far as like menu goes and that kind of like growth, I think that that's just going to be like an ever changing thing. That we may have like our flavors that are dedicated to us. But as far as like specials and stuff, I think that, we're always looking to kind of, develop those and kind of grow with the community, I guess. Mm-hmm. We have gotten a lot of outreach about, events and parties and that kind of stuff. So, it's going to be fun to see where that goes. We kind of have some stuff in the works, but I don't think, even though we're mobile, our trailer is mobile, we won't necessarily be mobile with that unit. Right now. It's a lot that goes into it, taking down the SERPs, to making sure that the movement, we have shingles on our roof. Yeah. So we can't necessarily just drive down the road 70 miles per hour. Right. So it is a lot of effort to do that, even though it is within the community. Potentially, it's just a lot of effort. So like I said, we have some things in the works that we're excited about. We have an RV that we purchased, a 1964, if he was here, he would correct me. I think it's 1965 actually. RV, Ford RV, that is in shambles right now.
It's a hot mess. I've seen it.
It's a hot mess, but I think it, like we were talking off air about this, is like when you see it and we have it branded to us, you will know it's us coming.
Yeah, I've never seen, I was born in 72. This thing is older than me, and it's probably got the original paint on it and all that stuff, but I've never seen an RV this shape. Yeah. Like it just, the first thing when you shot me the pictures on it, I'm like, what in the world? Like,
but it's so unique.
It is.
And it's perfect because I think even going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's our brand. Our brand is so unique because what snow cone stand do you see that is a farmhouse? Right. None. Yeah. So that was something when we were looking at even getting mobile, you know, we decided that we were going to do, because we had to have something. We had to have something that's mobile. You know, we had to have something that people are going to want, because people are going to want us at their birthday parties. And as much as I would love to be able to do like snow cone packages, I just don't think that it's feasible, because the snow, the machine, like there's just so much that goes into it that has to be in one place. So I'm really excited about that. I'm not really sure when we're going to be able to.
It's going to take some time to get it up and operational. I mean, it drives.
Yeah.
Right? It drives?
Well, there's one little switch that we have to fix, but I mean, essentially it's functional.
Yeah.
But the inside, it's awful.
It's going to definitely require a lot of casing skills.
Yeah.
And maybe more tools.
Yeah. I don't even know if he's willing to go down that route. I think he is kind of willing to let maybe another small business in town. So if you have any, if you're listening and you have any like skills, let us know, because we're looking into
paint, body work.
It needs.
It's got some stuff.
It's got good bones, but
it does, and it is like, again, like as soon as you showed me the picture, I'm like, they will definitely know that is yours.
Yeah,
coming down the road. I mean, it's not what you're normally accustomed to seeing. It's not, 40 Econoline little van with a side window cut out of it or whatever. I mean, it's. I know that the way you guys do things, you'll end up like, it's going to have to be this before we roll it on to the streets or whatever. And this will take some money and time and everything else to get to that point. But then once that's mobile, then that's a whole other avenue for you guys as well, too, to be able to kind of then see that. This has the ability to be like the Wienermobile. For the, I mean, it really does. I mean, it's like you see that.
Watch
thing
out,
coming,
Bryan College Station.
That's right, man. I mean, so then you can be anywhere, anytime, any place. Which I think that was probably the idea when you built the original unit. Yeah. But then you kind of realize, like, okay, well, we can't just uproot it, because this is where everybody expects us to be, and hey, we're not going to be here between 6 and 8 because we've got this going on or whatever.
Yeah. Also, we wanted to, kind of exceed those expectations of people wanting something consistent and wanting the quality and wanting everything. So it was kind of like an accident that it even happened. Like, we had this vision in our minds of how we wanted it to be. Right. But then when it really started building out, we were like, oh, okay, we do need to put shingles. We do need to put this kind of siding. We need this kind of paint. We need this, So when we started putting those things on there, it became something that we were like, we're not going to be able to be mobile. We can't, truck it to Madisonville safely without maybe having to replace multiple shingles, So, I mean, that was the intention, but looking back, I don't think that I would have done it again, like differently, because I do like being able to have that physical location where people can come to us, even though with social media, I think it's easy to put a schedule up, like, this is where we're going to be. I think people want that place that they go to.
Yeah. So, like, you don't want to roll over there and it's missing because you're at an event somewhere else.
Or even like, because you didn't look at social media, you don't know about it.
Yeah.
So,
well, and again, so the RV is going to open, again, a whole other avenue to you. It's probably not going to be ready this summer. I mean, you're going to have some work to do.
I mean, my optimism really wants it to be open this summer, but Kaysen's realistic side is telling me that it's not going to be open this summer.
You're going to need a highly skilled professional to have it open by the summer. But I think that you'll be able to take a lot of things that you've done with the stand, and the incorporation into the RV will be a lot more simple, because you kind of know what you need in order to be able to have that thing operational.
Well, and this won't be my first time getting what I need from the city. So walking down those avenues will be simpler, because I kind of already have been there, you know? So I know what to expect instead of just kind of walking into it blindly. Yeah.
We were kind of talking about that pre-show where, people who are opening businesses, again, they realize there's going to be things the city's going to expect from them, things that they'll need to do, licenses, fees, things they'll have to pay in the process to get open. And I think, though, what we were talking about in pre-show was it'd be great if those things were just like, here's your checklist to get open, and not like, here's your checklist, we'll check back with you and give you another checklist. You know, I mean, especially right now where we need businesses to be open, reopen, new ones coming to town, everything else. I think we've been spoiled in College Station probably to the idea that businesses want to come here, as opposed to the idea that we just went through probably the worst single business year that will probably ever be on record. Hopefully, let me knock that on some wood. And then not really reacting in a way that is pro-business friendly on the backside to encourage businesses to come and open. You know, like if you take down a lot of the red tape for businesses and just give them like, here's what we got to have from you. Here's the list. This is what it's going to require. And a business owner knows that going in on the front side. And it's not met with a, well, you know, that's not the right shade of maroon, or that's not, you know, this can't be open. This can't be visible. You need this many plants. You need, you know, we're going to need 32,000 points of plants out in front of your place or whatever. And this is 100 and this is 50. And, you know, we have to do better there. We have to have a city involved in the idea of taking the red tape and all of what the structure is. And I'm not saying burn it all to the ground, because it's also necessary. What keeps us. It also is what keeps us from just having any Joe open up somewhere. But some of the stuff that we expect and want to see in the past probably either needs to be tabled or definitely needs to be gone back and revisited so that businesses are able to clear hurdles quicker. Because for as long, you know, again, if I'm building a place, if I'm leasing a place and I've got to gut it out and everything, listen, those payments are going to come. And when those payments come, now all of a sudden, like, I need to get open as quick as possible. I don't need to be sitting here for 6 months jumping through the legislative red tape from the city to be able to get open. Tell me where I got to be at. Let me give you a time frame when I want to get open. And then when I tell you I've done all these things, do your part on your side.
Well, and I think that that's something that we found is like operating in two municipalities like Bryan and College Station. You know, the health department is in Bryan. So that's Brazos County. But then, I mean, we're both Brazos County, but it's the county health department. You know, we did everything with them, but then you have to take what they did and take it over to College Station. But no one tells you the process, like, you need this before you can come here. So it's really challenging. There's not really a point person that you're assigned to. So you're just talking to a bunch of different people and hope that this person has put notes in your account. So.
Well, the frustration factor also, the bounce back and forth, I want to really be able to go to a location and have it, I don't want to say all inclusive, but like, let me walk out of here with my roadmap. Yeah,
exactly. And no one, I mean, I know that there's probably reasons why this is right now, but it's just not like that. So when it came time for us to open, like you were saying, it was like I was banging on their door. Hypothetically, banging on their door, like, tell me what I need because I need to be open. Like, if I can't open now, I'm going to continue to pour money into this because of ideas I keep having. So tell me when I can open. Tell me what I need.
You're trying to pre-prep people. You're trying to pre-plan for opening, and it's like, okay, you told me all these things. I need my final CO. And okay, well, we'll do final CO on this day. So you're thinking, okay, final CO, if I set my opening date here, I should be good. And then final CO maybe comes. If it does come, oh, hey, by the way, that's all got to stop. I mean, that's got to be, I think the part maybe for that as well too, because we experienced it here as well when we were trying to open, is it's not always the same person. You know, like, oh, well, so-and-so told us we need to do, yeah, but, you know, they were just filling in or doing whatever. It's up to their discretion. Yeah, it's like, this is really what needs to happen. That's so frustrating as a business owner to just be like, tell me what I got to have, and then help me remove any of the barriers that I've got to do as a business owner. Because, listen, when we build a place, we want it to be we're not here to build an eyesore. We're not here to cut corners to get open as fast as we can. We want to be long-term, staple, aesthetically pleasing, all of the other things, and be a good corporate citizen to the Bryan College Station area, right? Pay our taxes, employ people, do all of those things. And while we understand there's reasons for all of it, we understand that there's licensing and all this stuff that goes into play to make sure that shortcuts aren't in place that could potentially damage community, damage people, damage, there's a whole list of things that are there to protect all of that. There has to be a streamlined process, and it really has to get streamlined here in a post-COVID world. You talk about Bryan College Station. Me opening a business in Bryan and me opening a business in College Station, when they're both linked to each other, should not be that different. And it really shouldn't be that different. It should be, but you've got cities that are like, well, we want to be this and we have a standard. And the other side of town is like, we want business.
Right.
We need people here. We need tax dollars. We need sales tax dollars. We need all of those things. So what's happening is businesses that potentially could be coming to College Station, all the red tape, all the extra money, all of the stuff that are going, then go to the other side and go, what are you guys willing to do? Well, we're willing to do this, and we're going to waive these taxes, and we're going to give you this land, and we're going to do, hey man, I mean, I understand there's both sides of town, and there's a College Station and there's a Bryan and all of that other stuff. But how many times do we refer to it as BCS?
Right, exactly.
And so that's really where the frustration comes in. If you have a business in Bryan and you want to build a business in College Station, I will guarantee you that will look completely different than when you put the business in Bryan. And that just shouldn't be that way.
No.
And so if we want businesses to be successful, we have to remove obstacles from them to make them successful. And that shouldn't be caught up in red tape of trying to get their doors open. And it should be met with, saving those businesses that are struggling and helping those businesses. It's frustrating to watch businesses week after week come forward and be like, look, listen, we're going to have to close our doors, and it's encouraging that we live in a community that will come to the rush of that. I've seen so many people share out the business we were talking about earlier, so many people sharing that business out to say, listen, we all need to go here and we need to support this because come this day, they've got this much money due. Well, guess what's going to happen next month? There's going to be money due next month. And so it can't just be flash in the pan either. Right. It's got to be a community that supports everybody. And there's room for everybody. Yeah. That's the other part of it. For as much of a joke as I made earlier about all the barbecue places and everything else, there's room for all the barbecue places. Yeah, just
look at like C&J's versus Rudy's.
Sure.
Like, yes, they're both barbecue, but they're different barbecue.
Well, sure. And as a community, we can say, okay, one's corporate, one's locally owned. Yeah. I mean, you can go all the way across the measures, but it doesn't mean like let's defund Rudy's and refund everything over here to C&J's. I mean, everybody can earn and hold their own spots here in town. But the reality of that is where's the first one that's going to be met with the potential obstacle of closing? It's going to be the locally owned one as opposed to the corporately owned one. So. And the corporately owned side is not emotionally attached. I know that sounds terrible to say. I've lived it. I understand it as when it's locally owned and I've got to go to church with people and I am in that community and shopping alongside of them and everything else. I mean, if my place is not providing the business that College Station comes to expect and I run across these people, I got to answer to these folks. So that in itself is the encouragement of small business because it is people who they don't want to open a business here that gives a bad name to the community, to themselves. Yeah. They want to provide the best possible product at the reasonable prices that allows them to live the American dream of running a business. Yep. American dream of running a business is hard.
It's hard. And I think that the American dream, it changes every day. You know, I think your idea of what the American dream is in general changes. Sure. So it isn't just like a template of how to run a business because your business is different than my business. Yep. So it's challenging. I don't know. I mean, I didn't think that it would be as hard as it is. Like we were talking about, the snow cone business isn't just a few products. It isn't just ice that's shaved into syrup.
Yeah.
it's so much more than that.
People look at it and they just sit and go, oh, that'd be an easy business to start up.
Like, yeah, it may be easy, but there's so much more. And if you want quality, I think everyone wants quality, but I think it's how far are you willing to take that quality?
And how long are you willing to do it? I mean, it'd be an easy business to start up and run for a couple of years, but is it a business that you start up and run for 10, 15, 20 years? Can you leave a legacy behind with the business? Can you be a business that is actively involved? So let's end on that part. That's kind of where I want to bring you around to is as a part of that future plan and things like that. We were talking about the profit sharing deal, because you're in the ideal business for that. I mean, PTOs that are out there with kids at schools, that are looking for the place where there's profit sharing, that is something you guys do. That you want to be able to do as well too, to be linked in and involved with the schools, involved with profit planning nights where they can basically get a percentage of those sales back, encourage their kids to come out. I was like, man, what kid is going to say no to a snow cone? Yeah. Like, no, man. I mean, my kid comes for the most random stuff that comes through profit sharing nights for these schools. And I'm like, really, man? But in a 9-month window, 8-month window of school, we might do the same place twice. And so the opportunities to be able to have a business out there that ties almost directly back when you start talking about kids and snow cones and giving them the opportunity to support a new business while that new business is then able to support the schools, the PTOs. So again, when we get to the end here and we kind of give out your contact information and everything else, if you're out as a part of a PTO or you're out as a part of a group that you try to put profit sharing pieces together, make sure you take down Shayla's information and reach back to her so she can help you guys coordinate that, and definitely set up an environment where it's going to be good to bring the kids out, have a good time, and be able to raise money for those PTOs and schools as well. So the final thing for me in this process is, there's a lot of people who've learned a lot about your business here, the struggles, the future plans, your investment into it and everything else. And your investment goes as far as like you're wearing your Hooray for Snow Cone shirt today. And so long term also you do plan on having like swag gear for people to be able to buy, hats and shirts and things like that. And so, and they're cool. I mean, we've got a couple of the shirts, and it's like we wear them, and people, how those shirts are they're so cute. And again, I think it's that your marketing background of like, you're meticulous. Like this shirt wasn't just like see this, I want to do it this way. I mean, it was really thought like from colors to, what kind of shirt it goes on. Again, it just it spoke to the evolution of what you hold as aesthetics as an extension of your business, not just necessarily what's right there.
Well, and I think it's a representation of me too, like everything comes back to me. Right. So if I'm putting out something that if I'm just like making this random shirt, then people are going to be like, oh, it's just so generic. Yeah.
Well, and it was funny, like Deanna told you the other night, like we were at Target and we didn't know the kid worked for you, but he was walking around with the Hooray for Snow Cone shirt, and she's like, Look, there's
that's
one of Shayla's shirt. Yeah. I mean, so again, it is seeing your business almost advertised out there. I mean, there's nothing on the front that shows SoCo Sno. It's a little back tag on the back that shows it, but it's the idea of all you need is one person to go, where'd you get that shirt from? Oh, that's so cute. I mean, where did you get that? And they're going to assume saw it on Pinterest or it was on Etsy that I bought it or whatever. Yeah. And so again, that's another extension of your business that you also want to try and help incorporate your cards that we were talking about. So
some punch cards.
Yep.
So just the punch cards, but then we kind of have developed the Lucky Snow Cone. That is, like you said, it's kind of evolving as we go. So we have a stamp, our logo stamp that we've been putting on the bottom of the cups. So like when someone sees that they have a Lucky Snow Cone, they can bring this back to us and get a free snow cone for the next time. So
this is new. I didn't know this. Yeah. You must have just started doing this.
Yeah. Okay. It's something that my parents, they talked about doing when they were younger. The guy that ran the snow cone stand when they were younger in their hometown did. And so I was like, why can't we do that?
Yeah.
So it's just that extra layer you know, that is fun, that kids like to be surprised, even adults. Like, everyone wants to win something. And if you're like me, who never wins anything, like, even if it's a snow cone, it's exciting.
Well, and it's not like I got to buy 12 there to get one free. You're buying 5, you get your next one free. So your 6th one. So, and you know me, I am terrible with that card. Every time I've come to you, you're like, did you bring a card? No, I didn't bring my card.
Yeah. So. I'm like, I want to give you the stamp. I bought the stamp to give you the stamp.
I know exactly where my card is. It has the original stamps on it, and I've never put another stamp on it since you've given it to me. I'm terrible with it. I don't know what to tell you. I still keep coming by and buying snow cones. I don't really care about the stamps.
Next time I'm just going to have to, like, you're going to have to tell me when you're coming. I'm like, bring your punch card.
I know. I have to figure out a virtual punch card or something for me.
I know,
it's gonna be one of those deals. But yeah, so I mean, again, buying 5, I can literally, I mean, the other day, I brought all those girls with me. I literally could have gotten that whole thing filled in one run, you know. So, and so if you're out there and you're bringing the kiddos out and everything else, this card like is literally probably another, you know, free snow cone to you in the process of feeding your family out with some snow cones after a dinner or after a hot outing or whatever. So, but listen, I'm grateful to call you my friend. I'm grateful that you're bringing something to College Station that's missing. That's missing. Yeah, I mean, just flat out. I mean, I'm glad that I don't have to go and frequent some other places, that I know that I can support small business. You know, I don't have to worry about my daughter anymore telling me to go to the big corporate place that's in South College Station to get her something. You know, I feel like our money is going back to serve not just you as the business owner, but the community as well too, directly in. And I know that money is then being turned around and spent back in the community also. So supporting the small businesses, the local businesses in town. I mean, people who are talking about the corporate places and everything else, like, well, they pay sales tax dollars and everything. That's all true. But the reality, and they'll say, you know, the managers that run those places, you know, they have mortgages and they have all this. That's all true. But ultimately, they also have the support of that corporate umbrella that these small businesses don't have. It's almost like a safety net. And what we really need is we need to support more small businesses. I've said on this podcast many a times, is the large businesses, the corporate businesses that are out there were built on the backs of small businesses. Before there were corporate businesses, there were small businesses. Even Walmart, you know, Walmart was Walton Five and Dime before it became Walmart. And it was a small, locally owned business in Bentonville, Arkansas. And so it's important that everybody understands that as small businesses come to town, that we do our best as a community to try and support them and give them the opportunity to be successful. And then that just ventures into other things for our community. It's great to be able to see small businesses who started out that then become their donors, they're stepping out and sponsoring events. You know, you see their names on banners at things. It's cool to be able to see those businesses evolve to be able to stretch their dollars into the community, whether that's through schools or camps or whatever, that they're able to kind of put their brand mark on those places as well too, that then pays back other people in the community.
Well, and I think like seeing that you've supported that specific business, you know, you feel good about it. You're like, oh my gosh, like maybe they're there because of me. Maybe I was one of the ones that helped push them over to this, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Level, you know? So, there's so much that small businesses do for communities that I think kind of goes unseen. I mean, obviously, like, yes, we know that there's small businesses and small businesses make communities, but, kind of lifting them up and highlighting them is definitely needed.
Well, and it's you know, how many times have you heard the little hole in the wall statement made somewhere where it literally is just a small business tucked away somewhere that people didn't know about? And, you know, talking about San Antonio earlier, and I'm just sitting there like, I can think of probably a handful of places that we would go and eat at that you don't see it on a billboard, you don't see it advertised anywhere in town, but it's word of mouth, and this place has been in business for 30 years. You know, it's a little mom and pop place, but it's known by the people who frequent it and know the caliber of the folks that run it and know the product and the expectations that come out of that business. So, but we're grateful, we're grateful that we know you guys. And again, that SoCo Sno has come here to South College Station. Encourage people to go out there. So again, if they're looking to find you, let's talk about location. You're at the corner of Barron and Highway 6 in the Chevron gas station parking lot that's attached to La Familia. Little white farmhouse building at the end of the place right there. So, and again, right now, plan is to stay there. May change in the future. Just kind of depends. Again, you've got people that, like we were talking about earlier, they're reaching out to you to kind of see if there's other locations. Probably, I would imagine, probably long term, that won't be your finalized location. I know even you and I kind of off air have talked about some other locations, but again, if you build it, they know that you're there and people are frequenting it, they'll follow you wherever you go. It doesn't really matter where you end up showing up. So again, if people are wanting to reach you, your website, they can reach you at SoCo Sno. So let's make sure that we spell that out for everybody. So that is SOCO and Sno is SNO.com, or they can reach you by phone. That's 940-256-2899. Get directly to you if they've got any plans. Maybe they've got an event coming up where they want to bring a group there, pre-plan a little bit for you to give you an opportunity to have places for them. And you guys have, you've got picnic tables with umbrellas out there and everything else. So, but again, your goal is always to be able to provide the location that people want to come to and want to be able to serve. So, but I appreciate you coming out and spending time with us today. Look forward to seeing what's going to happen. Even by the time this podcast drops, I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing what's going to happen over the summer for the snow cone stand.
Thanks for supporting
us. I know. I am going to be lifelong supporting you because there's just no way.
Because I have chocolate. Yeah,
that's right. We can't get around it anymore. And I get asked every weekend. Are we going to the snow cone stand? I mean, so I'm excited for you guys, and I know that once people get an opportunity to test it out, be able to see your kids that are out there that are trying to do the best possible jobs for those customers that are coming up and interacting with them, that they'll feel the same way we do about it. Good people supporting good people. That's what we need here in the Bryan College Station area. So thanks for coming in today. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
Look forward to talking to you off air. And for you guys, again, thanks for joining us again today for another episode of BCS Community Connections. And we look forward to talking to you in the future. Have a great day, guys.
Bye.